Everybody, how's it going? Andrew here. And I just wanted to say real quick, if you could do me a huge favor and all of us here on the Indie Game Movement podcast, and that is just to write a review or rate the show. One of the two, whatever works for you. It would mean the world to us. That information, the review, the feedback, so helpful to know if we're on the right track, if we're doing things that you really like about this show, if we're covering the right content, the right guests, whatever it may be, all that's helpful. Not only that, the reviews, the ratings, those are all helpful in terms of discoverability so we can do better on the platforms that we're on, wherever you're listening. If you could just take a moment, write a review, it would absolutely mean the world to us, and just a small little way that you can help and do your part as a listener to make sure other people are finding out about the podcast, are learning and getting the great, helpful content that you are also receiving just by listening. So again, take a moment, whenever you can, write a review, rate the show. It would mean the world to us. So thank you so much for being such great listeners. And now let's get right to the show. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. I'm Andrew Pappas. I'm going to be your host today, and we're going to be talking about building a killer creator program. Now, collaborating with content creators is one of the most impactful ways to amplify awareness and grow your game's community. However, structuring programs sometimes can be a struggle when ensuring they support and benefit content creators too. Today, we're going to explore practical strategies your studio can use to amplify your marketing, engage your community, and hit goals while simultaneously supporting creators. From discussing crucial aspects to the program's design to empowering and nurturing creators, you'll have all the insights you need to build a killer creator program. So that's what we're going to be talking about right here today on Indie Game Movement. Hey, everybody, and we're back. And today with us, I have Ruth Dominguez. Ruth, how are you doing? And thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm doing very good and really excited to talk a bit more about my work with your audience.
Yes, and I'm definitely excited about that. And I hope all of you here listening today are excited. But first and foremost, let's introduce Ruth here. She's the marketing and data officer at Stunlock Studios, where she does everything from monitoring results, KPIs, data, and, well, honestly, a whole lot more. But on top of that, Stunlock Studios, I'm sure most of you are familiar with one of their titles, V Rising, but also we have Battle Right Royale, Dead Island, Epidemic, Bloodline Champions, and Project O. So lots of cool titles that Stunlock has produced over the years. In addition to being that marketing data officer, you're also involved with like aspects of the community, support, customer service, legal, finance, localization, and partner relationships. It's like, oh my goodness, is there anything you don't do, Ruth?
A bit of everything, yes.
That's
it's
awesome.
Very fun.
Yeah, definitely a lot of fun. I don't see how you could not have fun with all those different areas, getting involved. Great stuff. But some really cool things about you too. I mean, this is honestly mind-blowing for me, just personally, but just you're fluent in English, Spanish, and Swedish, and you even knew German for a bit of time, not so much now, but I mean, let me ask you real quick. If you could speak Swedish, can you basically speak German to an extent? Because I know there's a version of Swedish German and like, or yes and no, or not really, or people can default to English if needed?
Not really.
Okay.
They are very different languages grammatically, but they come from the same roots. So I would say they are more similar than all of the other languages together. And actually, it was very easy for me to pick it up when I moved to Sweden. And I had to let go of the German because I was confusing them both in my brain.
Ah, okay.
So I can still understand the German, but I can't answer. When I try, I only speak Swedish. Only Swedish comes out.
Yes, that's a great point. And I think that's where I think some of these 3 languages in themselves is mind blowing, just because it's like, I know a lot of people, when I talk to them, they're like, oh wait, I'm trying to think of the answer, but I'm thinking in French, or I'm thinking in this way to try to say it in English. So when you have all these languages, it just, I could say, especially when they're similar in some ways, it can really like change, make it a little bit more challenging. So, hey, 3 is impressive. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
But on top of that, which is really, we were talking about before we started recording, and you have a master's in economics, which is really cool too, because it's just how much of that background and your schooling with that really relates to a lot of the stuff that you're doing. And we're going to get into some of that a little bit today as it relates to our topic. But before anything else, I'm curious, what's one thing that you do in your spare time when you're not working, when you're not doing all these amazing things at Stunlock? What do you like to do to kind of unplug a little bit?
Well, of course, play video games. That's like my biggest hobby, and it is so related to my work. So it's part of research, I would say. But maybe because it's so similar to my work, I would say that I like working out a lot. I try to be active every day. I take CrossFit classes with a trainer twice per week.
Nice.
And the days that I don't do that, then I go for long walks or go to the gym. I have a lot of energy and I need to get it out somehow.
That's amazing to hear. And plus, on top of that, doing those types of activities probably also give you more energy, but in different ways. And it just keeps you going nonstop, it sounds like.
Exactly. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. But I want to dive in a little bit more to get to know you and everybody else here, to get to know a little bit more about you by putting you through the Q box round. And that's just a few random questions we prepared for you. So are you ready?
Good.
All right. What's your main approach to tackling problems?
Okay. Well, as I mentioned before, I am a very energetic person and I'm also not very patient. So when there is a problem, I just need to fight it immediately. And I tend to center all of my energy on the problem, all of my attention, which is very effective at work because my colleagues know that they can rely on me. When there is like a crisis or something needs to be done, they know I'm going to be there until it gets solved. However, it takes a toll to be like that because if you are already very busy with work and then there is a problem and then you focus more hours into that, by the end of it, you can get really burnt out. And that's why working out really helps because it helps to relieve the stress. It forces you to step away from the computer for a while. So I would say that, yeah, I'm just hands-on on problems.
That's awesome. And I'm glad that you brought it back into that other component because yeah, you're right. Trying to find solutions to problems or challenges can be really difficult. And in order to do that, you really have to have a fresh mind, essentially, right? And those type of physical activities can probably do that a little bit better. So it allows you to tackle these things as fast as possible. So that's really cool to know because sometimes we might not put those two things together and how they can relate. So sounds like you at least for you, nailed down a system that works really well. And that's awesome to hear.
I'm trying.
All right. This is a fun one. What's one thing that most people don't know about you?
Well, I actually have a YouTube channel. This started because when I finished university in Mexico, I did my master's in economics in Germany, and then I moved to Sweden, and then I started working in the game industry. So many people were very curious about what my life was like. And I started creating blogs, uploading videos about like the supermarket in Sweden, the crazy, weird fishes, those that are very smelly and people know the surströmming. So people are just curious about life here. And it's more like a hobby. It's not for the money. I just really enjoy it and have made a lot of friends in the community. But I get so triggered when I watch my old videos, so I never do it.
That's cool. So basically, it's like a YouTube channel about your life adventures, essentially, right?
Yes.
And very casual and stuff like that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's very fun.
Awesome. All right. And as you kind of shared with us earlier, I'm curious to find out this answer. And it's a staple here on the show, folks, which is what game are you playing now?
Okay, the game is called Mask of the Rose. It's a
Okay.
game by Fail Better Games. Have you heard about them?
I think I have. Yeah.
Okay,
But
they
tell
are
us a
the
little bit about
creators of Fallen London.
it. Okay.
Okay, I think that's their most famous game. It's a web game. And Mask of the Rose is based on that same universe. It's
Mm.
very dark, but it's also very funny. So it's just like a mix of dark humor with a bit of romance and mystery. And it was just released 2 weeks ago, and I have been playing a lot of it. And so far, it's good. It's just like the right mood before the summer break.
Ah, that does sound good. I love dark humor, so that's something I'm definitely gonna have to check out then. So
Then check it out.
cool.
Maybe you will like it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that information. And now let's really get into our discussion for today. And folks, that is talking about building a killer creator program and lots of cool things that I can't wait to explore. But to kick it off, real quick, just for context, could you describe, what a creator program is and what should studios consider before building one?
Sure. So a creator program is a dedicated time and resources for a system where creators can sign up to access your game and other benefits. And there are two keywords here that I mentioned, and that's time and resources. So all studios should expect substantial work going into their creator programs. So it's not just having a website for creators to sign up and then automatically getting a key. It's more about developing relationships with them and taking care of them as if they were your community as well. And always make sure to show your gratitude and make them part of your general marketing strategy.
So, love that you put that forward, broke it down so clearly there. I think the key thing that you mentioned is just really developing relationships. And because I think what you said so well and succinctly is just, hey, we have these other ideas of, we need to build this and that and everything else. But clearly you're like, hey, the focus is the relationship. And how are you building that relationship? And how is that then incorporated not only into supporting these creators, but also how are you bringing them into the fold with what your goals and objectives are and everything else? And we're going to get into that in just a moment because, really, that is all imperative stuff. Hey, it's great to build your community and everything else, but how does it relate to action? How does it relate into results? So with that said, let's talk a little bit about goals and challenges. Starting out, what would you say was your process in determining how much impact and a return on your efforts would come from building a creator program? So you led in with this idea of relationships. What was the plan? What was the work involved to really know that, hey, this is going to create results. This is going to create impact for Stunlock, for games, V-Rising, whatever it was that it was applying for. How'd you go about doing this?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And I would remote back to Battle Right. So it was a while since we have worked with creators for V-Rising because our last game, Battle Right, we hadn't worked with them for a long time. So between Battle Right and V-Rising, a few years went by and the creator scene changed greatly. We knew that creators would be important for us to help spread the word about V-Rising, but we just didn't want to stop there. We wanted to help them grow as well. And many creators reached out to us because they believed in our product and we also believed in them as creators. So we helped each other and created very strong relationships, which you can see even now. For example, when we launched Secrets of Gloomrot, that's the first V-Rising expansion, which we launched 1 month ago, we had many creators coming back to the game and working hard to spread the word. So not only they play the game, but they try to get as many people as possible to play it, because I think they felt that the game was as much their project as it is ours, because they had been in our creator program from the beginning. And to be honest, for me, that has been the best part of it, that I can feel a lot of the creators in our program genuinely care about the game. So our goal was not only to yeah, sign up here, grab a key, and play. But invest in them as much as they have invested in us by playing our game and spreading the word.
That's that's really good to hear, and I think a good concept to lead with. Like you said, it goes back to relationships, but I mean, you use the word investment too. I mean, investing in that relationship, and even going back further. I mean, you had some validation too. Prior to, for example, V Rising, but there was enough there to really understand and know that, hey, this can definitely work, and this is a process that we have to go, but we have to kind of like change course a little bit simply because of, like you said, there's a lot of changes that happened in between then. So I think so really gave you a sense of the impact and basically the return. And, that said though, as you were moving forward and everything, what were also some of the challenges that you faced? And maybe you can give us some context too, like as far back as you can, at least to your involvement. What were some of the challenges starting out with earlier projects? And then what were some of the challenges starting with more recent projects?
Okay. When I joined the company, we were working with Battle.right, and I wasn't as involved with creators for that game as I am now with V Rising. And well, when we started working with V Rising, we were just two people in the marketing team. So two people just doing everything when it came to the marketing strategy, to the campaigns, to partners, everything. And it was a lot. So we also were working with very simple tools that over time we improved. And yeah, that was a bit hard because we had a limited amount of time. Churn in the game industry is a very real problem, and Stonlock takes it very seriously. They try to minimize it as much as possible. They want us to be healthy when we work. They don't want to push us too hard. So in that regard, working in this company has been very healthy for me because I know like they have my back, but I still want to push myself to do as much as I can. So it was a lot of work at the beginning. Now that our team is bigger, I can focus more in other things. And I would say that we have come quite far when it comes to the technology that we are using. We have new tools, we know how to use them better. So we have improved all of our processes, but all of that took time.
Right. So a lot of learning experiences and everything going back there into what you have now. And I think it's important to call out too that kind of the company, I would say, Stunlock's mission or culture is to understand around reducing churn as much as possible and keeping a healthy mindset. But also it sounds like that to also challenge, people. And again, this goes back to your comment about resources, whether it's tools, whether it's the resources and time and your involvement or how much you're involved too, and being mindful of that, because if that wasn't maybe led with that focus, you wouldn't have been able to learn or to have the right mindset or have just an overall healthy mindset to moving forward with things, because just simply that little focus could allow you then to really optimize, develop those processes and everything else that you're working with on nailing down these creator programs.
Yeah, exactly.
So cool and great stuff. Now, let's talk a little bit specific with numbers, not specific numbers, but in terms of how these actions relate to numbers. So, okay, over the course, you identified processes, tools, and everything else. Adding these resources, adding these tools and everything else. How did you see this as in terms of really addressing your goals as a whole for projects? Like, hey, by implementing or using this tool or this process, do we see X return of wish lists or followers or whatever those metrics may be? How did you start putting these two together to really give you insight to projections or other things, why your time should be invested in a creator program versus maybe other marketing efforts?
Well, that is where my economics background kicks in. We actually have several documents with formulas, matrices. It's like a system where we try to track as many KPIs as possible.
Mm-hmm.
We input the investment and then we control the result. And then we see which one has the largest return on investment. And we try to separate as much as possible when it comes to audiences, countries, and for example, maybe some creators in certain countries can help us with certain audiences, and then different creators can help us in different ways. And we try to measure as much of that as possible. And at the end, when we observe these results, we compare the overall performance of our campaigns, and that helps us create new campaigns. And based on the good results, do more of that. And then the bad results help us improve our systems.
And I love it because it sounds so simple and basic, but at the same time, and I think it definitely is, but for a lot of people, this can be a little bit complicated. But I mean, what you're just outlining here is simply, hey, look, we have this plan, we're monitoring the results, and then based off of those results, we especially whatever those are, like KPIs and stuff, key performing indicators, we then decide to take action, whether it's good or bad. And
Yes.
and it really isn't more like, it doesn't have to be complicated is I think the point, right? It's just some of these things and setting these criteria to follow and everything else, which is really cool, because at the end of the day, and like you use this word too, which I think is really important, you're looking at factors that you have the most control over possible. You can't control everything, but that really focusing on, hey, what do we control? And also what's cool is being strategic, because, hey, it's great to get influencers or content creators to help out with this, but how can we be more strategic? How can we be more focused on that level of detail to really amplify or impact what our results are? So that's really interesting.
Yeah, I also think, now that you say that we have a very interesting team in marketing. We're 4 people and we all have different skills. Our marketing director, he's very good at strategizing,
Yep.
at coming up with strategies. Is that a word, strategizing?
Yeah, totally.
Is it?
And it's okay. We'll make it a word if it's not. But yes, it is. I'm pretty sure. No, I'm questioning myself, but it's a word. But strategizing.
Okay. He is very good at strategizing. And I have other 2 colleagues. One of them, he's really good with community. And the other one is very creative when it comes to visual things. So like the mix of all of us has allowed us to kind of specialize in what we do. For example, I would never be, or I'm not good at making an image for our next sale and post it on social media. Maybe I wouldn't be the best person to talk to the community about it, but I like keeping track of the results and helping plan the dates, while the main strategy is based on our director's vision. And these other 2 colleagues, they help with the visual assets, with the community. So that allows me to focus more on the analytics part, which is what I really enjoy. So I think maybe that's part of what has worked well for us, that we all like what we do and we like different things. We are good at different things. And then the combination of our skills has allowed us to have a killer creator program. How do you say it?
See, marketer at heart right there. No, that's in very good points. Like it basically it comes down to, and we've said this in numerous cases, different contexts though, but it really comes down to playing to everybody's strengths and then kind of combining those strengths and sharing that vision, getting on the same page to the point where it's like you share some data and stuff, and then that might connect with someone who's more in the community or visual aspect of the marketing portion and being like, oh, I can see now how these numbers relate to this image compared to this one. And then strategy is like, okay, so what else can we do to incorporate more, but maybe in other areas? And then it just all comes together, basically, like you said.
Exactly. It's all teamwork.
Yeah.
Like maybe I am the best at finding these correlations between the different campaigns, but maybe I don't have the vision on how we can play that to our best, like our director does, and then how we can translate that into these beautiful assets that we share on social media, and then how the community reacts to that and how we engage with that. I think we all do our roles, and we are our own Be Rising clan. Yes.
No, but it's super awesome to hear that how that like synergy is basically so important, and not just that, but also communication, because keeping that ongoing and everything really, it sounds like, creates a lot of not just all right, horrible analogy here, everyone, but it's kind of like, how like Voltron or Captain Planet, they all they all have their own abilities and strengths, but then when they come together, they create this unrelentless force to fight evil. Not that you're fighting evil, it's just getting awareness out there, right? So sorry, I had to. It just came to mind. I went with it. So cool stuff in terms of finding that good fit, that kind of that team superpower, if you will. But let's go back to a little bit more about the creators themselves, content creators. Now, you mentioned earlier about, like, we talked a little bit about being strategic with the creators and things along those lines. And let's say even perhaps if control can play into this as well, but as part of your program, are there any particular types of creators that you look for, or do you have any type of criteria or qualifications that you have when selecting? I mean, do you just accept anybody, or what's that process look like?
Well, we welcome everyone who is interested in Be Rising, regardless of language, location, size. I would like to open the doors of our castle to everyone who wants to be a part of this vampiric adventure. There are no requirements.
So no requirements at all. So let's say if you have anybody from variety streamers or content creators to very focused on types of games, then if there's no requirements, how do you then adapt things so you have as much control as possible, and as a means to, control as a means to getting the results you're looking for?
That's where the tools come in. I would say those tools that I was talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. At the beginning, we had to do everything manually. But now with time, we have used certain tools that help us filter out people, but not so much because of their genres where they play, more the people that are genuinely interested in the game, who want to play. They might be big, they might be small, but we think everyone should get a chance to get a key and play the game. And what we did for the expansion is that we invited everyone in our program to sign up to get keys for launch, keys and other rewards. And they had to sign up for this because we wanted to have a filter when it comes to scammers. I don't know if you know about this, but recently there has been like a wave of scammers pretending to be creators. They have maybe YouTube channels with thousands of followers. They look very real, but they are not. And those keys end up in the black market, and that is very dangerous for any game. So we wanted to have filters, particularly to just filter out the people that wanted to play our game from those that just wanted to sell the keys. And these tools come very useful when it comes to giving out keys. So we don't have any qualifications or restrictions when it comes to sizes, languages, occasions, but we do have filters so that we are not being scammed. And I would say to all of the people working in the industry that are listening to this podcast, it's always good to keep an eye out for those, because I personally get dozens of emails every single week. People pretending to be curators or streamers. And at the beginning, it's hard to know when they are fake or not, but with practice, it's much easier to catch them.
Yes, it's a very good point too, because they're getting better at kind of tricking, right?
Yes.
But I think a quick and easy tip, and please give your quick feedback. We're going to digress for a moment because this is very important. It happens regularly. But what I've noticed too is like it's usually in the form of some type of email. Check out my channel, and you're like, wow, this is a really popular channel. They've covered games. But one key indicator I see is that they might cover a lot of popular games because they know that will get their ranking, or not rankings, but like a lot of views or whatever else that they're trying to use as a tool to make you think that it's a big channel. But sometimes it's taking someone else's content and putting it on there and saying it's theirs and all these other things. So you see this channel that looks like, oh, looks great, but like how long ago were they up and running, and things like that could be a factor. But it's still tricky but usually I feel that if it doesn't seem like someone well established or kind of random or things like that, those are generally good indicators. But they're using like trick tactics, if you will, to try to get you there. But again, that's where relationships or asking questions can help you. I'm sorry. Any other input there is like those some things you see, or any other indicators, flags on that sense?
Yeah, I would say what you said is very important. Just try to get familiar to how they operate. And if you have any questions, like I think there is not that much communication when it comes to this. I actually became aware of this myself before our like PR partners raised the flag to us. I had already noticed about it. And so just reach out to other people in other companies, and always like don't be afraid to ask questions about this topic, because this affects everyone in the industry. It affects players, it affects developers, even creators themselves get affected by this. So I would say this is a problem that we can all do our best to tackle. And so other things that give away are the way they write. Yes. Nowadays, I get so many emails from, I don't know if it's like the same person or group of people, but they are all written in a similar way, most of them. And then it just gets very easy to filter them out. And also there are some channels that might seem bigger. They may have like 40,000 followers like on YouTube. And then they have comments. But then if you go to the profiles of the people that comment, you realize there's something fishy about them.
Yep.
And then it's just obvious that it's a fake account. Sometimes something that I've noticed that it says like, oh, I'm whatever name, I'm Daniel from Denmark. My English is not very good, blah, blah. And then I request a key for your game for location or region, and then Denmark. And it's just like, this is a really weird way to request a key. So yeah, just read between the lines, do your research. There was a very funny one where they pretended to be a school from Poland.
Okay.
And I actually went to the school's page, and the page that they sent, it looked like a real website. But then I Googled the school, and it turns out that it was not, like the school existed, but it was not the one that they sent. This page was fake. Like they created a fake website pretending to be a school. And then the real school existed, but it was a different website. They were nothing related to what they were writing. So it's like they're getting very creative.
Oh, man. So watch out. Have those filters in place if you're creating content creator programs. And that's our PSA for this particular episode. We haven't done that before, so I'm glad we did. That was something new here. But hey, still on topic, still relative, and still very important. So, Ruth, thank you so much for sharing more details about that, because this is an ever-growing problem. And like you said, it affects creators, it affects game developers, studios, and affects players too. And together, we can help share a little bit more information about this trickery going on. So that said, filters are important. Now, how about expectations though, in terms of, hey, you signed up, we don't have any requirements, but this is kind of the stuff that we want you to be considerate of to do. Is there anything that you have set there that allows you to have a little bit better control of what the content creators are doing, but still giving them freedom, of course, and creative control over what they're producing for their content and for their audience?
Okay, maybe something that I should clarify. Maybe I should have done this earlier, but we don't pay creators in our creator program.
Okay.
So what we do is that we send them keys to the game. Like at the beginning it was for themselves. Now it's for them to do giveaways. We have
Okay.
like a special creator newsletter where they get relevant information for the game, maybe information that our users get, but in a more relevant way for them. They also get our updated press kits directly on these emails. We have like seasonal campaigns where they can get keys. We have also partnered with Discord, for example, and we have sent Nitro keys or codes to our creators so that they can get Nitro for free for several months or give away to their community. We also have partners like Razer or Gportal that sometimes give us discounts. So we try to make it as rewarding as possible without it having to be paid for. And that's what I would say has been the. Now you asked this earlier. How do you measure maybe not success, but kind of? And I would say that when your creators genuinely care about your game, they, of course, all creators want to get paid at some point, but sometimes they just want to promote your game because they like it and because they feel it's as part of their project, like the project is as part of them as it's ours. And that's what I have seen with a lot of our creators in the program. We have never paid them, but when we released the new expansion, they came back and they tried really hard to get the game out to as many eyes as possible. And we didn't pay them for that. They did it because they care genuinely about the game. And for me, that is success. It's how much they want to do their own work because they believe in the project. And I'm very grateful to how well we have been received by the creators and how much many of them care about V-Rising. It makes me very happy.
Yeah, and I would imagine, of course, and like how much it would make a lot of people happy if that were the case. And it's great. I mean, you just went right into the other area I want to talk about too, is like the incentive support and obviously the measurement of those things. And I mean, because it's a key factor. Is a lot of us probably understand that, hey, there are some costs associated with getting content creators, getting coverage, and things like that. And you're saying up front, hey, we've set it up where we don't pay them. However, well, one, it goes back to what you said earlier, relationships and creating something that they're really invested in and want to be more of a part of. And that's where that relationship continues to grow further. But then from a support perspective, I mean, everything you just outlined is, I think like maybe I should be a content creator now, because I mean, just to the level of support where there's a special newsletter for them. There's not just a key to play, but giveaways to their community. I mean, the key part is straightforward and kind of like what you said in the beginning. But then having updated how many times do we see people, they have a press kit and they kind of set it and forget it? And it might be a couple of years or whatever time goes by, and new assets and other images and stuff are being used, but then the press kit or whatever is still hasn't been updated, right? But to make sure they're on that newsletter. But then you just keep sweetening the deal for them to the point where, to start, you said, you already have this relationship, and then you're showing to them, we're going to show you how much we care. We're not just going to say it, we're going to show you. So you got Nitro and other perks. I mean, there's just so much more that's like baked into that. It's almost like a no-brainer that these people don't want to, because even without the pay, it's like, wow, they're really doing everything possible to support us. And again, it goes back to that symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, we're trying to give back as much as possible. We are not a big studio. We're not that big, and we have limited resources. So as much as we would like to pay some of, or maybe everyone, I mean, I would like to pay everyone, but we can't afford it. And it's more of a sustainable strategy in the long term, rather than paying everyone one time and saying, okay, here's some money, go and play the game, and then just forget about everyone. It's more like, we want you to grow. Like, we do shout outs to creators as much as we can in our social media. I personally try to do as much as possible to the creators that I have relationships with, not only when they do V-Rising content, when they do all kinds of content. And we also try, for example, now with the expansion, we gave them keys to the new DLC, and they could do giveaways with their communities, and that helps them get new people interested in their streams, new people to sign up. So we want them to grow. We believe in them just as much they believed in us at the beginning. When before V Rising got big, we didn't know it was going to be this big, and we're super grateful to everyone that has helped us. So they believed in us from the beginning, and we want to show our gratitude by giving them as much back as we can. Maybe money is not an option, but in other ways, for example, these newsletters and just talking to them, like my Twitter is always open to all creators, and I talk to a bunch of them there or on Discord through email if they have any questions. For example, if they had issues setting up servers, then they can always reach out to us directly. So I would say is that relationship that you talked about, like just trying to cultivate those relationships into the future. I think that's been one of the best things for me about the program, and something that I really like, because I can see how some of them have grown thanks to playing with Rising and doing these giveaways, and that also makes me very happy that it's like a two-way relationship. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see what more we can do with the program.
And you know what's really cool is in the beginning, we've said this word a few times. You talk about, the investment, but it's more, it started off with them being invested in your game, and that being probably the good introduction part. But then being mindful of that investment goes right back into them, investing in them. Because like you said, like calling out to them, and not just when they're writing or creating content about V Rising or whatever the project is, but also be like, hey, look, there's this other game. Let's shout out to let's share that with our community. Let's share that wherever we can share it, and really show that we mean it when we say we want this to be a lasting relationship. And from part of that too, you said even from that whole process, that whole, really focusing on such a strong product and carrying that over to the point where you're seeing some of these creators grow and become even bigger than what they were before, and being successful and basically achieving what they want to achieve. I mean, not only is it a rewarding experience, but it's also for you, for them, but it still plays back into everything else that you're looking to do from a perspective of goals, from a perspective of getting results and everything else. I mean, I can't think of better ways to make that type of stuff happen. And there's lots of different ways to have these things happen, but not quite like this, not quite to that level of fulfillment plus results. It's kind of crazy that those things can get boiled down in that way. But it can, and you guys are finding ways of doing that and everything else. So
thank you. We're trying our best.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's working. Sounds like it's cool. It's a challenge. It takes some time, but it can be done. Great ways of doing that. Now, let's talk about this. Totally talk about the importance of supporting these creators, of what investment really means, and how it's really a give a little, take a little, right? It can't be just one-sided. But on top of that, how does this then also, how do you guys focus this time, energy, and effort into this program? But then what about the rest of your community and still building that and everything else? And is this somewhat like folded into that process a little bit? Or I guess what's the dynamics there, and how do you make sure that you're still giving enough attention to your community while still supporting this other essentially community that you created with creators?
Well, from a marketing perspective, everything that we do is like a constellation of different parts that together make something bigger. And our community is in very good hands with our community manager, Jeremy. He's my colleague who is in charge of the community, and he does a very good job talking to players. And I am more in charge of the creator program. So we rely on each other a lot. And that's something that I really like about our team in marketing, that I know my colleagues have my back just as I have theirs. So if there is something that needs to be done when it comes to creators, then I know that I can rely on Petra. Petra is I forget the exact name of her role, but she creates very cool assets for everything. Everything that we use on our website, she had her hands on. and she does very cool things for social media, also for the newsletters. When, for example, when I want to send a newsletter to creators, Jeremy helps me with the text because he's the only native English speaker among us, and he's very good at text. And Petra helps me with the assets. And then our director is the one that oversees everything, and he knows if it's overall a good idea or not. So it is a lot of work, but when you have a team that really complements each other well and they are always there to help, it just goes much faster. And then you know, okay, I have this idea, this can go very well if we work all together. And then it just gets easier. It's still a lot of time investment. It goes back to your first question about what is a creator program. And I said investment of time and resources. You do need to spend the time. Just like any real life or like in-person relationship, you need to spend the time to create those strong bonds with your friends, with your family. And it's the same with creators. That's what I meant when I said it's not just about creating a website, having an automatic system that sends out the keys. Because yes, they might play your game, but maybe they won't genuinely connect with it or with yourself as a company. And all of these relationships we're creating now have been very good for Be Rising. But in the future, when we have a new project, maybe these relationships will be also very strong by then. And these are people who already know what they can expect from us, and it will be easier for them to just create content. So I would say the time part is a big investment, but if you do it right, you gain a lot from it. And I think a lot of creators really value that companies spend the time talking to them, listening to them. Like we've had surveys specifically for creators to know what more we could do for them, not only in the program, but for the game as well. Like how can we make the game in a way that you will feel, oh, this is cool for my channel. This is something I want to do with my community. Like how can we make that happen for them to enjoy it more?
Yeah. And so well said. And I'm glad you went back to that point, because I'm sure some people listening here are thinking, well, I don't know. I don't have these designated team members to do this, but this might be something I really want to. And again, as you say, it's really a question about what is that investment on time? Because let's say if you don't make a certain amount of time or whatever's required to invest in this program, it could mean it just doesn't work well. And if that's the case, then you might think that, oh, it can never work well. But the reality is just maybe it's not the right time for you in that case. And if it is, or you think that you have the resources, really know what's involved to that investment. Because like you said, with the other team members, it goes back to what you were saying earlier about your team and how everybody has a pulse and everybody can pull their weight in certain areas, but also help others in other areas, to the point where you combine and have that big superpower that you can all come together and join forces with.
Exactly.
But if not having that, then hey, maybe this is something further down the road to consider, keep in mind. But hey, if you have the mindset of building things moving forward with the idea of building those relationships, then you're going to be in a better off position down the road than if you don't think that way. So,
yeah.
No, and good. I appreciate you calling back out to that, because just another reason to way to identify whether or not this is something right for you. Just because you want to do it and it sounds awesome doesn't mean you should do it. At least now. Or I mean, ever. It really comes down to you and asking those questions. All right. Before, I know we're getting close on time here, but I want to go back real quick to kind of some number stuff based off of everything we talked about. So we talked about the value of investment both ways, symbiotically and everything else of these things. How are you able to really measure the program success with, again, overall impact it had, let's say, even from your community all the way to the results in general? So it's like you get these creators, they're doing stuff. How are you monitoring this activity? And plus, you're probably doing a lot of other things with marketing. So how can you really pinpoint it to the content that creators are producing and saying, hey, this is actually attributing to our goals? What are some processes or ways to identify that this is working?
I would say there are two different dimensions to measure it. One is the more mathematical way with the KPIs, just how many views did we get for example, when we launched Be Rising, we got to the top 10 viewed games on Twitch, and we had a lot of creators streaming the game, creating YouTube videos, and that was on launch. And then for our expansion, we had a bit of a different strategy, but still it went very, very good for us. Thankfully, we're very grateful for all of that. And we always take those KPIs into consideration, like numbers of views, numbers of streamers on Twitch, on YouTube videos, how many minutes watched. And so all of these more strict KPIs that you can observe, these numbers that you can calculate and save in a spreadsheet and then compare to different campaigns. So that's the more direct way of analyzing if your campaign was successful or not. But the other dimension is more about feelings. And for me, that is just as important. For example, for Gloomrot, we didn't pay anyone to play the game. And still, we had a large number of creators in our program that came back to the game just to spread the word about the game. They talked about how much they enjoyed the game before. They wanted to try the new stuff. Just like the positive word of mouth. And you can see that it comes from a genuine place. They didn't have to come back and do it, but they did it because they are genuinely interested in seeing the game do well. We had everything from small creators, like small when it comes to numbers, like followers or viewers that played a lot of the game and tried to get people to buy it. And we also had people like Asmongold that played the game for a bit and just talked about how much he enjoyed playing it the first time. He didn't play that much for the expansion because for him it was very similar to the first time that we launched it, which is very valid. Like, of course, he will have his opinion, but just the fact that he talked about it, it shows how we did have like a special all craft episode where two of our designers had an interview with him and Rick. Yeah. And so he remembered that and he talked about that during his video. That, maybe he was not going to play so much of the expansion, but he had very good memories from the first time he played the game. And so I would say both things are as valuable. Like having Asmongold talking good about the game for a short while in one of his videos as having these creators with a smaller number of viewers just talk positive about the game. Like the more you can get as word of mouth is just as important. And that's how I would say it's a success, that people come back to try your game when something big happens. Encourage others to play the game and doing it out of genuine care about the project. And I would say for me, both the KPIs and the positive feeling, I would say, that creators have towards us as a company, to the game, to the creator program. Like I will always remember when we just launched Be Rising, that we gave keys to the people that had signed up to the program, and they were so grateful that we gave them keys, even if they were so small, because they had never gotten keys for any other game. And that just made them connect with us and with the game so much more. And they played a lot of it. And that made me so happy that we could make a difference in these people's channels. And we're just as grateful to them for how much they love It Rising and how much they do for us. So I would say both things are important. You want both the good numbers, the good cold numbers, but you also want that positive interactions and the genuine interest.
I absolutely.
I could talk more about it. Maybe that's enough.
No, I absolutely love it though. The numbers, the feelings, and just really making that whole, a positive experience and how to improve upon that and stuff. Awesome. So great stuff. Now, we talked about a lot here. Lots of information. Out of everything that we discuss, what are some either tips, suggestions that you could share with our audience today about all this?
I would say start early. So don't wait until you have finished the game to reach out to creators. Just when you're still working on it, just try and reach out to people that you think might be interested in your game. Tell them what you are working on, invite them to your program. And if they are interested, then they might be some of those creators that stay with you for the long run. So start early, I would say. The second one would be, again, the anti-scammer filters. It is a problem right now with all of the keys that are in the black market and many people getting scammed, like players buying these keys and then being fake. So the more we can fight this issue in the industry, the better. So I would say if you're going to have a creator program, make sure that you filter out the scammers. And the last one, maybe the most important, is believe in creators of all sizes. Like, don't focus only on the larger creators. I believe everyone is doing their best to grow their channels and their efforts should be rewarded equally.
Yeah, all well said. All well things to consider. Just because sometimes if we try to be too focused or too honed for those results, it may not play out as well as we might think. But, you know, all things to consider and great, great suggestions. So thank you for sharing those. And now we must depart. But before we do, could you please share any links, information? How can people connect with you if they want to find out more about Stunlock, what you do, or V-Rising or other projects? What are some ways people can connect, reach out, find out more?
Well, to me directly, I love meeting new people. You can find me on Twitter. My username is Ruth. That's RUTH. Underdash. Is it called underdash? Right? That like
underscore, under dash.
Underscore.
I knew I knew what you meant, but there you go.
There's my proficient English.
It's all good.
Okay. Okay, again. RUTH underscore Lady Strifey. That's LADYSTRIFY.
Excellent.
And that's my Twitter. And for our games, you can go to our studio's website. That's stunlock.com. But as I mentioned before, I love talking to people. Maybe that's a fourth tip, I would say. If you're going to put someone to work in the creator program, make sure it's someone that enjoys talking to new people, because it's just going to make things easier. I really enjoy talking to new people, getting to know them, what they are interested in, watching people play games. So the more you like it, the easier it's going to be to do your job because you're going to enjoy it. So just feel welcome to write me on Twitter. We can chat a little bit. If you have any questions, then just feel welcome to write me. And yeah, I would say those are the best two ways to get to know us a bit better.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that information and being so open and willing to meet new people to connect more and stuff. I mean, like you said, that's part of the game, if you will, of the creator program, but still it's awesome that you can extend that to everybody. So can't thank you enough for being here on the show today and talking in such great detail about how to build a killer creator program. So Ruth, can't thank you enough for being on the show today.
Thank you, Andrew. And I hope that you and your community have a great summer.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for listening to another episode of Indie Game Movement. I'm Andrew Pappas, your host, and the show's producer is Mustafa Price. Show notes for this episode can be found by visiting rengenmarketing.com, the number episode of the show. Rengen Marketing is a consulting marketing company that helps indie devs with their marketing efforts. Whether you need guidance with your game's marketing strategy or could use a free marketing plan template, then please visit www.rengenmarketing.com and take action. A special thanks to Dakota Saw for Season 2's opening theme and Melissa Gellis for the new logo design. And as always, thanks for being such great listeners, and we'll see you next time on Indie Game Movement.